sang before the walls could rise, before the children filled the sky, before the empty fields could bloom. You heard the future in the room. The night had written barren lines, but heaven spoke a different time. The ground was still, the door was closed.
Today we are going to talk about the mystery of Isaiah 54, Mother Zion, the enlarged tent, the children, and the covenant of peace. There are chapters in Scripture that begin in sorrow and end in glory. Isaiah 54 is one of them. It opens before us the image of a woman who appears barren, desolate, and without children. Her dwelling seems empty. Her future seems contradicted by everything visible around her. And yet, before anything changes, Adonai gives her an extraordinary command. Sing, O barren, you who did not bear, break forth into singing. This is where the mystery begins. Why would Adonai command a barren woman to sing before the children have appeared? Why enlarge a tent before anyone has arrived to occupy it? Why speak of descendants, inheritance, restored cities, precious foundations, and great peace while the woman still appears desolate? Isaiah 54 does not address her according to what the eye can presently see. Adonai addresses her according to covenant. The visible world sees barrenness. Adonai sees motherhood. The visible world sees an empty dwelling. Adonai sees an enlarged household. The visible world sees ruins. Adonai sees cities inhabited again. The visible world sees shame and abandonment. Adonai sees a woman restored, established in righteousness, surrounded by children, and secured beneath an everlasting covenant of peace. Isaiah 54 is therefore more than a promise that suffering will eventually end. It is an unveiling of identity before manifestation. The woman is commanded to sing because desolation will not have the final word. Her song rises before the walls rise. Her confidence comes before the children become visible. And before Adonai tells her to enlarge the tent, he first teaches her to hear what heaven has already spoken concerning her future. The barren woman who is already called mother. Isaiah begins, Sing, O barren, you who did not bear. The contradiction is deliberate. The woman is barren according to appearance, but the same verse immediately speaks of her children. She stands between what has been promised and what has become visible. Scripture contains this pattern elsewhere. Sarah received the promise before Isaac appeared. Rachel knew barrenness before Joseph was placed in her arms. Hannah wept before Adonai in the sanctuary before Samuel was born. In each case, the visible condition did not cancel the purpose of Adonai. Isaiah 54 enlarges that pattern beyond the history of one natural woman. Here, the woman becomes a prophetic covenant figure, and Isaiah 49 helps us identify her more clearly. There Zion cries, Adonai has forsaken me, and my Lord has forgotten me. But Adonai answers that he has not forgotten her. Then something extraordinary happens. Zion looks around and discovers children gathering to her. She is astonished. Who has begotten me these, seeing I have lost my children and am desolate? That question illuminates Isaiah 54. Zion thought she had been left empty. Yet children unknown to her sight were already included within the purpose of Adonai. She did not create them by singing. Her faith did not manufacture them. Her song was a response to the revelation that what appeared lost had not been forgotten by heaven. This is why Isaiah 54 can address a barren woman as though motherhood already belongs to her destiny. Barrenness describes the season. Motherhood describes the covenant promise. And this is an important distinction throughout the chapter. Adonai does not deny that desolation happened. He does not pretend exile was painless. Later, he acknowledges affliction, shame, apparent abandonment, and the condition of the storm-tossed city, but none of those temporary conditions is permitted to become her eternal identity. A season may conceal an identity without destroying the purpose for which that identity was appointed. The woman therefore sings while the tent is still empty because she has begun to hear herself described from the perspective of restoration. And once the promise has been heard, the next command comes, enlarge the place of your tent. The song comes first. The preparation follows. Let's talk about Zion, Jerusalem, and the mother image. The ancient witnesses help us identify the prophetic woman. Targum Jonathan interprets Isaiah 54:1 by addressing Jerusalem as the one who had been like a barren woman. Rashi likewise understands the prophecy in relation to Jerusalem, while Ibn Ezra connects its restoration with the people gathered back into habitation. Isaiah is therefore not presenting merely an anonymous woman. He is presenting Zion and Jerusalem through living feminine imagery. But here we must distinguish carefully between related prophetic layers. Galatians 4:26 declares, "Jerusalem which is above is free, which is the mother of us all." The passage then reaches directly back to Isaiah 54:1. This establishes an undeniable connection between Isaiah's barren mother prophecy and all Jerusalem above, the heavenly mother. Yet Scripture also uses Jerusalem, Zion, city, bride, wife, sanctuary, and feminine dwelling imagery in ways that unfold through more than one level of the heavenly family and covenant order. Therefore, we should not collapse every appearance of Jerusalem, mother, bride, or city into one undifferentiated person. The mother and the daughter are related within the divine pattern, but relationship is not identity. Jerusalem above reveals the maternal heavenly reality from which the children are associated with promise. The daughter, in her own appointed office, carries the bridal Zion sanctuary and restored city pattern through which that heavenly order becomes manifested within the work of restoration. The images mirror and answer one another. Motherhood, daughterhood, bride, city, household, and sanctuary can participate in the same covenant mystery without requiring us to erase the distinction between mother and daughter. This distinction becomes especially important as Isaiah moves from the mother who receives children to the enlarged dwelling and later to the afflicted city rebuilt in precious stones. The prophecy is layered. A heavenly maternal reality stands behind the promise. Zion is presented corporately as the mother of children, and the restored feminine dwelling progressively anticipates the bridal city imagery that Scripture later unveils more fully. Rather than forcing these images into one flat definition, we should allow the prophetic pattern to unfold. And Isaiah immediately turns our attention from the woman to her dwelling. Adonai says, "Enlarge the place of your tent and let them stretch forth the curtains of your habitations. Spare not, lengthen your cords and strengthen your stakes." The command contains movement. Enlarge, stretch, do not hold back, lengthen, strengthen. The promise now requires preparation. The woman is not instructed merely to wait passively for restoration. She must prepare according to the future Adonai has declared. Enlarge the place of your tent. Before the covering itself stretches outward, room must be prepared for its expansion. The former dimensions will no longer be sufficient. This is not expansion arising from human ambition. The woman has not decided for herself that she deserves a greater dwelling. Adonai announced the increase. Her enlargement is therefore obedience to divine instruction. The Syriac Peshitta preserves the command with the same practical force. The dwelling is enlarged, its curtains are extended, the ropes are lengthened, and its pegs are firmly established. This creates a beautiful balance. The cords must lengthen because the covering is reaching farther, but the stakes must become stronger because greater expansion requires greater stability. Expansion without foundation produces instability. Foundation without expansion leaves the dwelling too small for what is coming. Isaiah gives us both. Reach farther, stand firmer. The woman who had known displacement is being prepared for habitation. The woman whose dwelling appeared empty is being told to prepare for increase. And the tent itself begins to carry more than domestic imagery. Tents, curtains, cords, coverings, and ordered dwelling naturally resonate with sanctuary language elsewhere in Scripture. We should not claim that Isaiah 54:2 is simply a description of the wilderness tabernacle. Its immediate prophecy concerns restored Zion and Jerusalem. Nevertheless, the shared language creates a meaningful harmony. The enlarged dwelling is not merely additional territory, it is habitation brought into divine order. It is space prepared for life under the covenant of Adonai. Ibn Ezra's interpretation also connects the expansion with inhabited places, settlements, and regions once empty becoming occupied again. That becomes important because the following verse tells us why the tent must become larger. Isaiah 54:3 declares, "You shall spread abroad to the right hand and to the left, and your seed shall inherit the nations and make the desolate cities to be inhabited." The enlargement of the tent was not the final destination. It was preparation for something greater. The Hebrew language conveys a forceful breaking outward beyond former limitations. The restoration refuses to remain trapped inside the boundaries created by exile. The Syriac witness likewise speaks of increase to the right and to the left. This is more than returning to what existed before. A simple return would restore the former measurements. Isaiah describes something that exceeds them. Adonai does not merely bring the woman back to her former condition. The restored household expands beyond the dimensions known during desolation. Then the prophecy turns to her seed, her descendants. They receive an inheritance among the nations. This language must be read within the restoration context surrounding it. The passage is not glorifying human conquest or territorial ambition. The same verse immediately explains the purpose. Desolate cities become inhabited. The descendants of the promise are not gathered merely to occupy a protected household. They participate in restoration. Where places were empty, habitation returns. Where ruins remained, rebuilding begins. Where former generations left desolation, life is established again. This pattern appears repeatedly in Isaiah. Isaiah 58 speaks of those who rebuild ancient ruins and restore paths for dwelling. Isaiah 61 speaks of rebuilding former desolations and repairing ruined cities. The restored become restorers. The gathered become rebuilders. The ones who receive an inheritance are also entrusted with responsibility. This creates one of the most beautiful movements in Isaiah 54. The promise begins with a woman. The woman prepares a dwelling. The dwelling receives children. The children receive an inheritance. And through them, restoration extends into places that were desolate. The movement is outward. Restoration begins within covenant order and then reaches beyond the household. That is why the tent must become larger. The restoration of Zion was never intended to end with Zion alone. But Isaiah does something important next. After speaking about outward enlargement, he returns to the woman's inner condition. A dwelling can become larger while the memory of rejection remains. Cities can be rebuilt while shame still lives inside the one being restored. So Adonai addresses what expansion alone cannot heal. Fear not, for you shall not be ashamed. He speaks of the shame of youth and the reproach of widowhood. This reveals that restoration involves more than geography. It reaches identity. The woman had experienced a season in which she appeared abandoned, exposed, and without protection. But Adonai refuses to allow the language of exile to become her permanent name. Then comes one of the great declarations of the chapter. For your Maker is your husband. Adonai of hosts is his name. And your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. The one who formed her is also the one who restores her. The covenant relationship has not been erased by the season of desolation. Isaiah continues, For a small moment have I forsaken you, but with great mercies will I gather you. The contrasts are deliberate, a moment of forsaking, great mercies, a brief season of concealed favor, everlasting kindness. The prophecy places temporary affliction against enduring covenant mercy. Exile is not her eternal identity. Shame describes something she experienced. It does not determine what Adonai has appointed her to become. And this restoration of relationship leads directly into another major revelation. Let's talk about the covenant of peace. Isaiah compares the promise given to Zion with the covenant following the flood. Adonai recalls the waters of Noah and the oath that such waters would not again cover the earth in the same manner. Then he gives the restored woman a comparable assurance: the season of wrath will not govern her future. Isaiah 54:10 declares, "For the mountains shall depart and the hills be removed, but my kindness shall not depart from you, neither shall the covenant of my peace be removed." Mountains appear permanent, hills appear stable, yet Adonai says his covenant is more enduring than structures that seem immovable. The Hebrew language of covenant kindness speaks of faithful, steadfast mercy, and the covenant of peace is larger than simply the absence of warfare. Shalom carries the sense of wholeness, soundness, order, well-being, security, and restored relationship. This is why peace becomes one of the governing words of the chapter. The woman is not merely rescued from destruction. She is brought into ordered restoration. The household is not merely populated, it is established. The children are not merely present, they are taught. The city is not merely rebuilt, its foundations are transformed. The covenant of peace, therefore, describes the order under which the entire restoration unfolds. And after establishing that covenant, Isaiah changes the image once again. The woman becomes visible as an afflicted city. The afflicted city rebuilt in glory. O afflicted one, tossed with tempest and not comforted. The city has not merely been empty, she has been shaken, storm-tossed, unstable, without comfort. Yet Adonai does not promise merely to repair what was broken and return everything to its former appearance. He says that he will rebuild her with precious stones. Her foundations are associated with sapphires, her borders, gates, and structural beauty are transformed. This is restoration beyond simple replacement. The prophecy begins beneath the visible structure. The foundation must be established before the beauty of the gates and borders can be secure, and this is significant. Adonai does not cover a weak foundation with decoration. He transforms what supports the city. Only then does the visible glory appear. The great Isaiah scroll preserves this ancient precious stone imagery, showing that this vision of the restored city belongs to the ancient textual form of Isaiah. And centuries later, Revelation 21 presents another holy city vision filled with precious foundations, gates, glory, and divine presence. We should notice the continuity. Isaiah does not give us every detail Revelation later unveils, but he establishes the prophetic vocabulary: woman, city, covenant, precious foundations, children, peace, restoration, divine dwelling. When Revelation later shows the holy city as the wife of the Lamb, the imagery does not appear from nowhere. The prophets had already taught Israel to recognize restoration through a living feminine city. And within the larger pattern we have been following throughout, the daughter of Zion restored, this is where the daughter's bridal city identity becomes especially significant. The daughter is not simply another name for Jerusalem above, the mother. Rather, the prophetic images reveal a correspondence. What exists in the higher order is manifested through the appointed lower and restorative expression. The mother stands within the heavenly maternal mystery. The daughter carries the bridal and restored city office that ultimately becomes visible in the New Jerusalem revelation. Isaiah 54 does not yet explain all of this openly, but it gives us the vocabulary from which the later unveiling can be recognized. The afflicted feminine city is not abandoned, she is rebuilt. Her suffering does not become her permanent architecture. Adonai determines her final form. And once the city has been restored, Isaiah returns to the children with whom the chapter began. Then Isaiah 54:13 declares, "All your children shall be taught by Adonai, and great shall be the peace of your children." This may be one of the most important verses in the entire chapter. Restoration is not complete because children have merely appeared. It is not complete because the tent has become larger. It is not complete because the ruined cities have inhabitants again. The children themselves must be formed under divine instruction. They become disciples of Adonai. Their peace is connected with what they are taught. This brings us back to the covenant of peace. Shalom is not produced merely by removing enemies. Divine order must be established within the household. The children must learn the ways of Adonai. That is why Isaiah continues, "In righteousness shall you be established." The restored household therefore rests upon more than numerical increase. It rests upon righteousness, instruction, order, peace, and divine protection. Then comes the famous promise, "No weapon that is formed against you shall prosper." Notice what the verse does not say. It does not say no weapon will ever be formed. It says the weapon will not succeed in overthrowing what Adonai has established. Opposition may arise, accusation may arise, but neither receives the authority to cancel the covenant purpose. Isaiah concludes by placing the righteousness of the servants of Adonai not in their own power, but in him. That completes the movement of the chapter. The barren woman did not produce her own future. The children did not establish themselves. The ruined city did not rebuild itself. The covenant was not secured by human strength. From beginning to end, restoration proceeds from the word mercy, instruction, righteousness, and covenant faithfulness of Adonai. Now we are about to know the mystery of Isaiah 54. Now we can stand back and see the entire chapter. At the beginning stands a woman who appears barren, but Adonai commands her to sing. Then he commands her to enlarge the tent. Her descendants spread to the right and to the left. Desolate cities receive inhabitants. Her shame is removed. Her maker is revealed as husband and redeemer. The temporary season of affliction gives way to everlasting covenant kindness. The covenant of peace is established. The storm-tossed city is rebuilt upon precious foundations, and the children with whom the chapter began are finally shown under the instruction of Adonai, established in great peace. The progression is extraordinary. What appeared empty becomes fruitful. What appeared abandoned is gathered. What appeared temporary becomes established. What appeared ruined becomes inhabited. What appeared ashamed receives dignity. What appeared storm-tossed receives foundations. And those who appeared absent become children taught by Adonai. But there is another reason Isaiah 54 matters within our investigation of the daughter of Zion. The chapter teaches us not to read feminine prophetic imagery superficially. The woman is connected with Zion. Zion is connected with Jerusalem. Jerusalem carries maternal imagery. Jerusalem above is explicitly identified as mother in the apostolic writings. The restored city later develops into bridal imagery. And Revelation finally unveils the wife of the Lamb as the holy city. These witnesses belong together, but they must not be flattened into one identity. The mother and daughter participate in a corresponding heavenly pattern. The maternal Jerusalem above and the bridal New Jerusalem are related realities. The higher order and its appointed manifestation answer one another. This allows us to recognize continuity without erasing distinction. And it helps us understand why the daughter of Zion can appear throughout prophecy through so many interconnected signs. Woman, daughter, bride, city, dwelling, sanctuary, and restored kingdom. Concealment does not mean absence. The identity is revealed progressively as Scripture allows one image to illuminate another. Isaiah 54 contributes an essential part of that revelation. The woman is not restored merely for herself. Her restoration produces a household. Her household receives children. Her children receive instruction. And through those who are restored, desolation begins to be reversed. The prophecy moves from heaven's promise into ordered habitation, and from ordered habitation into restoration, reaching outward. This is why the chapter begins with a song. Before anything could be seen, Adonai had already spoken, and the barren woman was asked to answer the future he had declared. That is the mystery of Isaiah 54. The empty tent was never the final picture. The desolate city was never the final picture. The shame was never the final picture. The storm was never the final picture. Adonai saw beyond all of them. He saw the mother. He saw the children. He saw the enlarged dwelling. He saw the restored city. He saw the covenant of peace. And he saw a household established beneath his instruction in righteousness. With this teaching, we complete this movement within the daughter of Zion restored. From the sorrow of Zion, we have followed the prophetic promise toward restoration, not merely restoration of land or architecture, but restoration of identity, household, covenant, divine order, and peace. And Isaiah leaves us with the children. All your children shall be taught by Adonai, and great shall be the peace of your children. That promise will lead naturally into our continuing study of Zion, her children, and the measure of peace established beneath the government of Adonai. Thank you, family, for studying with us and for continuing through the Daughter of Zion Restored. May these scriptures lead us beyond inherited assumptions and deeper into the patterns Adonai preserved from the beginning. May we learn to distinguish what Scripture distinguishes, join what Scripture joins, and allow every witness to speak in its appointed place. And may the blessing written in the Torah remain upon you. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. Shalom.